Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is Johnny. In this channel, we discuss everything bike, skateboard, mountain bike, paddleboard, surf, and rad related. So I delve into topics that I'm familiar with, that I have a little bit of background and experience on. And one of the things I did for many years was buy and sell vintage bicycles. And I remember a time where some of these bikes that I currently own today were complete unobtainium in the market. If an example existed out there, it was usually in a really bad condition, in need of a lot of restoration. And so a few years ago, I did do just that. I actually took some of these bikes that were in bad shape and restored them and resold them. And at the time, it wasn't a very profitable venture, but it was profitable enough. And so we're going to discuss sort of how the market has turned lately, what you can find now, and in the condition you can find it, where never before did we ever see bikes in such great condition as we do today. We're going to be discussing the bike behind me and learning more about it, and take a deep dive into that and its significance, and what this bike would have sold for a couple of years ago and what it's selling for today. All right, come with me and let's take a dive. So here we have a 1971 Gitane or Gitane, however you want to say it. I think down here in Texas, you're going to hear a lot of Gitane with that twang at the end of the word. And this is a Tour de France model. So you have the Tour de France model insignia right there on the fork crown. And so this bike is already over 50 years old, but it's got a nice still plush Brooks saddle, very comfortable. And the Derlin plastic simplex derailleurs are mostly there. I had to replace a jockey pulley on this derailleur, but I mean, other than that, it was intact completely. The front derailleur is still shifting. And the bike is in what I would call time capsule condition. Now, some could debate that. Some would say, well, yeah, it does need a little bit of restoration here and there. But when you put into the context of how old this bike is over 50 years old. 1971 was over 50 years ago. And look at the condition that it's in today. So it's got the Campagnolo hubs. It's got the Mafac competition brakes. And it's got the Sugino Super Mighty crankset. I've never seen one of these in person. And they only came on high-end bikes. That I do know, because I've never seen a Sugino Super Maxi in person. And so something interesting about French bikes of this era is that they were non-standard diameters and sizes all throughout the bike. So I would imagine, for instance, this Sugino Super Maxi was made into a French bottom bracket. I know for a fact that the rear dropout here is a simplex dropout that would not accommodate a modern derailleur without major alterations or modifications to it. And I know the seat post diameter is not standard size. Maybe the quill stem is. However, this just the approach that the French took to making this bike was very non-standard, because the standards did not really exist on road bikes until the 1980s. That's when we started seeing the seat post diameter standardized to 27.2. That's when we started to see most makers of bikes use 68 millimeter bottom brackets. And that's when most bike manufacturers started making bikes to accommodate 700C wheels. Prior to that, it was the Wild West, and this bike is from that era. And so that's what makes it special. The fact that it even has the silica pump that it came with originally, those little details make that all the more special. So this is, when I look at a bike like this, even how preserved the tires are, I see this as a rolling piece of art. Is this a bike that I would pound out on a group ride, that I would, do a 60-mile ride on? Absolutely not. Maybe this bike would be something I would, go with my kids to the park with, or do some kind of casual riding, some kind of short commute around the neighborhood. And if I had a place to commute to, this would maybe be a commuter, a bicycle. But as far as anything beyond that, I would not use it for those purposes. Now, you can tell by the seat post height that this bike is too big for me. I've got barely any seat posts sticking out of there, and it is about a 62 maybe centimeter frame. So why even hold on to this? Well, I haven't decided yet. I might end up selling this bike. I might end up keeping this bike. Right now, with the state of the market, it's not looking like I'm going to sell it anytime soon, just because prices are not where they need to be. So this bike was, being that it was one of the first imported bicycles to come from France and Europe, to compete with Schwinn at the time, which, before that it was either beach cruisers or it was old Schwinn varsities that weighed 40 pounds. This bike weighs 25 pounds, by the way, in a size 62 frame. So that's very reasonably basic. It's basically a really reasonable weight for the time period that this bike came out. So this would have been the Cat's Meow in orange Molteni colors, like the colors that Eddie Merckx rode in the 70s. This would have been the bike that everybody would have wanted. So if you go back to people who wrote articles about this bike, Sheldon Brown, for instance, he wrote a little article about the Gitane Tour de France bike, or about what the most coveted and desirable models of this bike boom era were. And so this bike comes out on top. So being that it has that meaning and value to collectors, I would not sell it at this time, knowing that I could probably maybe get more for it down the road. Right now, simply not a good time to sell bikes. If I absolutely had to get rid of it, I of course would. But it's something to hold on to as a collector's item and as an investment. How much did I pay for this bike? This bike was $40. It cost me $40 on OfferUp. And, this is what I got for $40. Basically, a bicycle with no rust, with all its decals intact. You can even see it has the Reynolds 531 sticker on there. It even has an old Texas A&M University license back when they required those for bicycles during the 70s. And believe it or not, it's something hard to fathom, but at one point in the US, bicycles became so popular, especially during the oil crisis of the 1970s, that they actually registered them with licenses as vehicles. Now that registration process is no longer around, and bicycles are seen strictly as recreational use vehicles, I guess you want to call them. But they were so popular that they needed a registration system just for the bicycles. And so a lot of cool little details about this bike that point out its history, may point out a little bit about the original owner who owned the bike. And for those reasons, it has historical value that cannot be easily parted with. And This has been the bike check on the Gitane 1971 model Tour de France. I hope you enjoyed it. I will keep putting more content out like this. I will go into deep dives more on the history of cycling or the current state of cycling as we encounter it today. And I'll keep putting other content as it relates to the hobbies that I have. You can see in the background, I've got skateboards, and we'll keep putting out more content. Thanks again for watching.